Yes, I can press record now. Yeah, luckily we've just started there. We want our children to have a life that is independent of us because we know that they have more years in life than us. That's the typical that's the typical way of most human beings experience. It's just that some unfortunately experience their children going off before them. However, according to most nature of things, our children will outlive us. And not just that, we want our children to have a life of their own. So we want to get them prepared uh, for life. So that is probably the reason why you are here, why you are committing yourself to be learning to becoming a more effective parent. And my personal experience as well, after 10 years of married life and 4 children, at that time, I only had the realization that, I'm not such a great father. I need to learn more in order to become a better father to my children. So to some extent, I have started going on that journey to repair back the things that I have broken, the parts that I have not been doing well. And isn't that the journey that we all go through as human beings? We started off with not knowing much, and we begin to learn along the way. And part of the reason for you being here is this desire to become a better parent for your child. And I'd like to quote Glenn Dorman. The words that I hear from him keeps ringing in my ear. He says that you, parent, you are the best teachers for your children. Fathers and mothers are the best teachers for the child. You can have somebody who knows a great deal of things about parenting, and yet the parent of that particular child is the best teacher for the child to become the man or woman that they are going to grow up to be into. So that puts a lot of pressure on us, doesn't it? Because we are the ones who's ultimately responsible for bringing them up. And this evening, I decided to invite you on this topic about hope and expectation, because what I realize is that sometimes, unknowingly, unconsciously, we parents become the stumbling blocks to our children's growth, children's development, due to excessive expectations. So when our expectations are excessive, we are putting undue stress on our children. And the stresses we put unconsciously, not deliberately, it may crush some of our children. Some children, they are able to withstand it, and yet unknowingly, we parents can put undue stress on our children because of expectations. So what kinds of expectations are healthy and what kinds are unhealthy? We have hopes, we have dreams, we have desires for our children. And yet, how do we transfer these hopes in a healthy way that will help them to grow, instead of transferring those in ways that are unhealthy? And the reason I latched on to this topic for this evening was in the last few months, I've been reading news. The thing about the algorithms in Google and Facebook is that the moment you read one news, they feed you with another of the same, right? So I've been coming across news about children as young as 10 or 12 killing themselves because of the pressures of growing up. And my greatest observation and belief is that children are highly resilient creatures. They are highly resilient human beings. I wonder if any one of you have come across that Korean young man. He was discovered during the Korea Got Talent show. At that time, he was 18 years old. However, his story was really tragic. He was left at the orphanage when he was 3 years old. His parents just left him there. So he was the orphanage discovered there's a baby, 3-year-old baby there. And the orphanage raised him. And the tragic thing was he escaped from the orphanage at the age of 5. The reason why he escaped from the orphanage, in his words, was he was abused. I can't imagine a 5-year-old making a decision to run away from a place because of the stresses and the pain that the child goes through. I have grandchildren of that age now, and whenever I remember that incident, it brings all of those emotions in me. I really pity that poor boy. And yet, to me, his story was a story of resilience. From the age of 5 to the age of 15, he lived on the street all by himself, finding ways to survive. And he survived until the age of 15. Only then an adult discovered him and began to take him under his wings and begin to provide the rest of the things that he needed to live. 10 years he lived on the street on his own. That to me is a story of resilience. How a young child at the age of 5, even though thrown to the wolves, so to speak, can still survive. And children have that kind of resilience in them. And yet lately, I've been noticing quite a few stories about children age of 10, 12, killing themselves. And I was thinking, how did that happen? What caused them to lose all hope of life to the extent that they would take their lives away? And what I realize is that what kills people is stress. Stress can help people, push people to grow. For example, Matthias, in your area, you feel so strongly about the ecology, about greening the earth, and noticing how the earth is being abused. That creates stress in you to the extent that you work hard in order to bring this message to human beings, right? So stress is a very powerful force that can get us to grow. And yet, when we are faced with stress, that we feel that we cannot go further, that's when people quit. And people quit their work, people quit their families, and some quit their lives. So when I look at that, I said, what can we parents do in order to reduce the stresses that are not necessary for the child? Because we parents, we want to put in the stress that will get them to push further, push beyond their limits, and become the better human being, because they need to develop, to grow, and they need that stress to push them. However, are there situations where we parents unwittingly put stresses on the child, and those stresses may add up over the years and may not be useful. And what I discovered was the stresses that comes from our aspirations, our hopes, our expectations, they can either be something that propel the child forward, or they can also bring the child backwards or even crush them. So that's why this evening I would like to talk about the hopes that you have, the expectations that you have for your children, and how to package them in ways that will strengthen them, that will bring them forward, that will make them better human beings, and to avoid the ways of putting it to them that builds undue stress in them. So I'd like to begin this session with asking you, what are your hopes for your child? What do you expect your child to be, do, and have in his or her life? So just to open it for discussion first. So what are the hopes that you have for your child, or in Franska's case, for your future child? What are the hopes that you have for them? So anyone?
Be happy.
Be happy. Oh, so I
Yeah.
hear a happy voice from Marilyn there. Yes, go ahead and unmute yourself and let me know, what are your hopes for your child? What do you want your child to be? Yes, Matthias.
Yeah, be a ethical person with integrity, hopefully respecting Mother Earth, the planet, and having a positive impact rather than a negative impact on the planet, and pursuing his and her own dreams, aspirations, and life's mission. There's no fixed expectation in terms of the kids have to do this, the kids have to do that, they have to follow in my footsteps. I mean, I call my little son Little Green Man, but whether he wants to be a green guy, an ecology, a sustainability guy, is his decision. Ultimately, he needs to find his path in life. So there's the freedom to walk the individual journey based on talents, hopes, aspirations, natural skills, and the life mission that they will discover as they grow.
I'll say amen to that. Yeah, I have goosebumps hearing all of the things that you hope for your child. Thank you for sharing that. Any others? What would you like to share? Yeah. Sue puts in here, independent and contribute to the society as best as they can, according to their abilities. Also, there is the inherent hope that they will do better than us in our generation. So thank you for that. Thank you. Anyone else? So what hopes do you have for your child?
To be the best version of himself.
So even if he doesn't swim, that's okay.
Oh, thank God if he won't swim. I don't need to bring him to the pool every single day.
Thank you, Marilyn. Now, the topic that I brought was hopes and expectation. Okay, Guat Ching, thank you for being here. Thank you for calling. You need to go away. And Shaima put here, to use the strengths and talents for the benefit of mankind. Yeah, that's a big hope that you have. So how do we differentiate between hope and expectation? So when you hear those words, what does hope mean to you? What does expectation mean to you? How does hope empower our child? Or can it also disempower them? So what does hope mean to you? What do you understand of hope and expectation? What's the distinction? Because once we understand the distinction between hope and expectation, we are free to have the wildest hope for our child without putting undue pressure. Yes, Deirdre.
To me, hope would be, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. To me, hope would be something that they aspire to be, whereas the expectation will need to materialize into something tangible.
Okay, thank you. Yes, yes. Marilyn, you would like to say something?
Expectation, if it doesn't happen, there'll be disappointment. Hope, well, I guess hope there less disappointment, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah. I will go with that. I will go with that. By the way, I didn't check the Merriam-Webster dictionary before this session, so I'm not going to give you the dictionary definition for hope or expectation. However, both Deirdre and Marilyn, you convey the understanding that between hope and expectation, expectation has that sense of sureness. It has to be that way. That's expectation. Hope is something that we have in mind that doesn't happen yet. We hope it will happen. If it doesn't happen, it's okay. However, expectation is when we put that element of assuredness in hope. We hope something to happen, but it must happen. Then it turns into an expectation. That's how I feel when I use the word hope and expectation on myself. Anyone has got different notion of the word. Sue puts in here, expectation is something like minimum standard, whereas hope is more open. Okay, yeah, Matthias.
Yeah, for me, it's not so much about the exact definition. It's about the flexibility that you bring to the table. If your hope or expectation is very rigid, i.e., the kid is only successful if it follows my footstep and becomes a successful lawyer, then you are putting the pressure on the child that the child's path is supposed to be to become a lawyer. But the child might be a person that, you know, likes something totally different. And then you're forcing the child into a certain avenue and job scope that might not fit. So, I mean, the hope is that the child will be successful. How do we define success? Success might be defined by the child is happy contributing to society and you know, generating wealth, both in financial terms and as well in contribution to the wider wealth definition. So, you know, the rigidness versus the flexibility, and the I know what you need versus I give you the freedom to find your path. Those are the key things for me in terms of where I have the hope that I can support that process that is not closed or rigid, but open and flexible. And it's an iterative journey that will need to be, you know, come step by step. When I was a teenager, my late father asked me, "Hey, son, what you want to do as a job?" I told him, "Dad, my job is to save the planet." His only comment was, "Son, you can't make money from hugging trees." So, you know, similar thinking like the Asian parents thinking, are you going to make money with that? How are you going to make money with that? So I told him, you know, that's what I'm supposed to do. I will find a way to make it work. So I mean, he wasn't in support of that because with his conceptual thinking, he couldn't believe that this would work. But, you know, I had my clarity already at that time. So I basically, you know, ignored his resistance to my path and pursued my path. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. As a teenager, you had that vision already. I'll say wow to that. As a teenager, I was just bumming around. Oops. And Sherry puts in here, hope equals to our dream. Expectation are the step-by-step process to achieve our hope. Yes, that's a beautiful way of putting it. The difference between hope and expectation. That flexibility, hope carries that sense of flexibility, as Matthias mentioned. Expectation carries that sense of rigidness. I hope. So Marilyn, if I were to say this to you, I hope you'll win the swimming meet, as opposed to I expect you to win that race. So for me, what it conveys is that sense of, I like the term Matthias used, flexibility and rigidness. Hope carries that state of flexibility. Expectation carries that state of rigidness in terms of the outcome. Yeah. So this is where what I understand and realize is that as parents, we do need to bring in that rigidity and flexibility in our child's life. So how do we bring it in so that there is that growth for the future, the stress that brings growth, and to prevent the stress that suppresses. So this is where, for me, where we put our hope and where we put our expectation matters. And it matters in the way that we communicate with the child. And what I would like to bring to everyone's attention is this concept in neurosemantics that we consider as the power zone. We are in total power. We have the ownership of our 4 central powers. Our power of thinking, feeling. These are our internal powers, thinking and feeling. Then the external powers of saying and doing. We have ownership of that, and we need to take ownership of our thinking, feeling, and saying, doing. In as much as I have the ownership of my powers, you, Deirdre or Sue, you are in control and in full ownership of your powers. So there's that boundary, the boundary between my powers and what's outside my powers. And when we lead our life, I can only be in control, and therefore I can only have expectation, those that are within my power. Because it doesn't make sense for me to have expectation of something outside of my powers. Because outside of my powers, there are so many other parameters coming in. So as parents, I have full power of what I say and what I do. I have full power over that. So if I want to put expectations, so I'll borrow Matthias' term, rigidity, expectation, sureness, guarantee. It's about my powers only. So I expect, I speak and behave in loving and kind ways to my children. I expect that I treat them honorably and respectfully because they are my powers. My saying and doing are my powers. And since I have full control over my powers, therefore, I can expect certain ways of doing with respect to my powers. Now, when it comes to my child's behavior, they are outside my power. They are inside my child's power. If I were to expect them to behave in ways that I want, I'm trying to usurp their power. I'm disempowering them. So how I see it, with respect to my child, that's where I put hope. I hope that my child will learn potty train. My child will learn how to shower by himself. I hope that my child will learn to clean up their room. I hope that my child will learn to do up their bed. I hope that my child will go to school. I hope that my child will enjoy school. I hope that my child will be friends with the people around him. I hope that my child is kind to others. However, in order for my child to be kind to others, I expect that I communicate kindness to my child. I expect of me. I hope for my child. So that for me is the boundary between hope and expectation. With respect to what's beyond my powers, I hope it will happen. If it doesn't happen, well, there are so many things out there. For example, we voted for a certain government and now we have another government in place. There are so many parameters in place. So how can I expect my child to come out top in his class? Because is it possible that there be another child who does better in the exam? So if there is another child who does better than my child in the exam, is it my child's fault that he doesn't get top in class? However, can I hope that he becomes top in his class? So that to me is the demarcation line. To understand that I can only expect of what's within my power, my thinking, my feeling, my saying, my doing. Since I have learned to take control of this, I can expect for me to behave. So I create that expectation. I create the expectation that I will do to my maximum to nurture, to nourish my child according to the means that I have. Beyond that, I can only hope. And once I realize that the demarcation line between expectation and hope, the boundary of responsibility, then I can hope for the heaven and earth for my child. Even if my child doesn't achieve heaven and earth, well, that's life. So that is also something that I want to transfer to my child, to teach my child about hopes and expectations. Because if the child doesn't learn that and only hope for the best in his life, he will not achieve his goals. And the reason why we achieve our goals, because we expect a certain behavior from ourselves in order to go towards that goal. So I want to communicate to my child, I hope that you will be at the top of your class. That's my hope. But things can come in between. I don't know. If things come in between, that's okay. However, there's something that you can do. You can work hard for that position. I hope that you'll work hard for that. I hope that you'll expect yourself to work hard for that. However, the result is what will be, will be. I can only expect what I can do. And I hope what I will get. So, any comments or questions?
Mazuki, expectations. Expectations are expectations of our behavior, what we can do, and hope is the result that we'll get, because it's an uncontrollable. We cannot control the results that we get, right? So we expect us to behave in a certain way in order to that we hope we'll get that result, but no one can be certain whether we get the result or not.
Yes.
So it's the difference between that expectation and hope.
Yeah.
And now that you've gone through this, the different meanings, it just brought me back to just now. It's actually my hope for my son to be happy and to be the best version of himself. Yeah, it's not my expectation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I started off by asking what you hope for your child. And most parents will hope for heaven and earth for their children. It's just that to have that clear, and many of you are familiar with me. I tend to use the terminology that fine line between responsibility for and responsibility to. That fine line is the responsibility line, the line that demarcates what I am responsible for and what I'm responsible to. Beyond that, I don't have responsibility for that. And I keep on saying that another term that I use for that line is the sanity line. Because the moment you attempt to go beyond that line, you'll drive yourself insane. Because it is within the power zone, you have full control, and you can learn how to take full control of your thinking, feeling, and saying, doing. It is all about learning the skills and applying the skills to bring yourself to higher levels of competency to take full control of your powers. Beyond that, you are not in control of what your child does, what other people's children do, what the public will do. So looking into the results that you want for your child. Yes, you hope that they will achieve the top in their class. Let's say you hope that. At the same time, from that hope, what are the things that are within your control? What are the things that are within your child's control? And apply yourself there. Stephen Covey used the term circle of influence. So apply your full force within your circle of influence. What's outside that, your circle of concern, you put out the hope and put all your best strategy At the same time, know that and give yourself that flexibility. And when your child is inspired by the hopes that you have, the child will begin to, you see, this is vision casting. You have your hopes and you speak to your child, you communicate with your child that vision from the state of love and from the state of joy. The child will take on those hopes for him or herself. And then the child will begin to apply it in his or her power zone. So that's when part of your hope has now becomes the child's expectation in the process of achieving it. So now the child expects that I will work hard for that because I hope that I'll be top in my class. So that shift in languaging to me will matter, because if the languaging is, I expect that you be at the top of your class, that puts that undue pressure on the child. I expect that you become a lawyer. That puts undue pressure. I expect that you become a doctor. Whereas when you put hope, I hope that you may, notice the languaging, I hope that you may want to become a doctor, a lawyer when you grow up. And the word, very, very, very useful word Matthias mentioned just now, that gives the flexibility for the child. Because now the child understands that that's what my father or my mother hopes for me. At the same time, I can still decide. Otherwise, I have a friend of a friend who, after graduating as a medical doctor, gave the certificate to his mother. Mom, this is the degree. This is my medical degree. This is what you wanted, and I have gotten what you wanted. Now I would like to go and do what I want. While he was studying for his medicine, he was selling freshly slaughtered beef by the roadside, and he was earning between 5,000 to 10,000 ringgit a month doing that, and he enjoys doing that. So, by communicating your hope, you are not putting your child at odds with his own dreams and hopes, because you have given him that flexibility, and you are opening the door for communication with your child. So, in as much as you have a certain passion in your life, for example, my passion in life is teaching. That's one of my passions in life. And I teach my children the skills that I have. At the same time, I don't have any expectations that they follow in my footsteps. So what are your hopes and dreams? Nothing wrong with having the wildest hopes and dreams for your child. What's important is that you convey it to them in the form of hopes and dreams with flexibility. Flexibility in the sense that your child understands that even if I don't achieve the hopes and dreams of my parents, they will love me anyway. Even if I don't go into the line, for example, Matthias, I really treasure the fact that you are so committed to your purpose, to uh, uh, to what you are doing, and yet you convey to your child that if he wants to get on this line with you, you'll be happy. At the same time, if he doesn't, you are happy for him too. So you are not putting undue pressure.
Okay lah.
Does that make sense to everyone? So may I have your comments?
Matsuki.
Yes.
So after defining the hopes and expectations, and you talking about hopes, I never thought about communicating it to my children. It's just something that you think within yourself. So that's very enlightening to give that. It's like an expectation, but in the direction of the hope.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Because they are like an open vessel. They can absorb a lot of things. So whatever values that you have, share that with them. Inspire them with the values that you have. You have values about the environment. Share it with them so that they can experience the passion that you have about that. Because if you don't share it with them, there are so many other things that they will be absorbing. And the real danger is when they absorb values that can hurt or harm them. So that's why, as parents, we want to continue to cast that vision from the state of possibility rather than from the state of fixity. So meaning to say, these are the possible things that you want to be. Your child says, I want to grow up and be a superhero. Wow, what kind of superhero would you be? What would you be doing in this world that you are a superhero? So bring it from this is what we call in coaching the possibility conversation, to explore that possibility, and to not be upset that next day he comes to you, Mom, when I grow up, I want to be a helicopter pilot. So from superhero to helicopter. So just open up the possibility conversation, because the possibilities that they are exploring right now, if the possibilities are possibilities that will bring value, that is useful for other human beings, then you want to light that fire, get it going. If you don't share those values that you have, the hopes, the dreams that you have, if you don't share it with them, they may latch on hopes and dreams that are detrimental to their well-being. Because you have out there people who are exploiting other people, other human beings exploiting other human beings. We have out there human beings who are exploiting the planet, doing a lot of damage to the planet. People who are so self-centered that they don't care about others. We do not want them to take these hopes into their lives. So if you don't bring that conversation, their conversation space is empty, so they'll take whatever the algorithm feeds them. So instead of being optional about the algorithm, you kick in with your own algorithms there. Bring in the agenda into their lives, agenda that will bring growth. Yes, Matthias.
Yeah, I think one of the main algorithms that kids get fed with immediately is the consumerism algorithm, and things as a reward for whatever they do, rather than attention, time, empowerment. So I think this is very important as well, that we kind of shift away from this idea, oh, if you've done something good, you get a thing, a physical thing, a gadget, rather than an experience or an emotion or something else. I think we need to be conscious of that, because there's a whole commercial industry out there that even through YouTube videos is already feeding certain gadgets and toys to children. I mean, this is an industry out there, and if kids believe that, okay, only if I get a thing, I am loved by my parents, then we are on a dangerous track. So that, I think, is an important thing. What I found interesting as well is my wife is into, even though she's not Chinese, she's Filipina, she's into Feng Shui and Basi charts and understanding people's kind of characteristics and future life journey. And it's actually quite powerful how we can see in the charts of our kids their behavior already, even though they're only 3.5 years old and 1 year old. With my baby daughter being very caring, very loving, very sweet, baby boy is much more, okay, you're with me or you're not with me. I do my thing. And so understanding the different characters of the kids and working with that, and not getting frustrated by a certain behavior or fighting against that natural behavior or personality trait that they have. I think that's a kind of an important thing as well, to align our flexible hopes and aspirations with the existing reality. But I've got to say bye-bye now, and nice to see you, Marilyn and Habi. We met some years ago, right, at a conference in KL. So
Rock your business.
Sorry?
Rock your
Yeah,
business.
rock your business.
Yes.
Yeah, great to see you guys. So I have to say goodbye, but lovely meeting you all here, and keep up the good work, Marsuki. We need this kind of conscious parenting, and I'll drop by in again in the future. All right.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Nice to meet you.
Matthias. Thank you, Matthias. Yes. So that realization, Deidre, that you mentioned, I hope that you'll bring it into your children's life too, because we need to do things deliberately. Values nowadays needs to be brought to our children deliberately. In the olden days, we live in small villages, and even when parents don't teach the child directly, the villages, their values from the village is imparted to the children through that interaction. Our children are exposed to 1 billion people out there. And out of the billion people, we say the map is not the territory. There are billions of maps out there. So if the maps that they are absorbing is diametrically opposed to your map, it's going to be a disaster for the family. Disaster meaning when you have difference in values, that is going to create a mismatch, loss of rapport. And because of that loss of rapport, there is going to be breakdown in relationship. So that's why as parents, it is our conscious responsibility to share our values with our children, Because once they take on those values that we share from states of love and fun and flexibility, we share from those states, they take it on upon themselves. Now they are operating from the same values as we are. And in that way, we are in rapport, we are in a harmonious relationship. So in today's day and age, we cannot be, the word is, we have to be deliberate. We cannot use hope strategy. I've been guilty of that for many years. Hope strategy. I hope that my child will have this kind of value. It cannot work. So whatever hope that we have, we need to translate it in our saying and doing, so that we are guiding our children towards that hope, and hopefully that becomes their reality.
Pak Jogi,
Yes, Franska.
want to ask, since when we need to tell our kids that we hope that, since when, like how many years old?
Since now. You can talk to your baby now what you hope him or her to be, even though you know him or her, you don't know yet.
A bit only.
So if even though you don't know, for example, with Sophia, the youngest, our youngest daughter, even when I didn't know whether it was a boy or a girl, I spoke to her and just called her baby. Yeah. So this is when you communicate, conscious communication. When you choose things deliberately, give the rationale for choosing, because you are showing the value of choosing something. Share it with the child, even when the child, you know that the child doesn't understand you. It's just that the child does. Yeah. The only thing is that the child has not learned how to communicate to you in the language that you are using. That's all. It takes them maybe a year or so to learn your language. However, when the child comes into this world, they have their own language. They understand things. And they have the capability to understand the language that you speak. And the first language that they understand in communicating with the parents is the language of states. They understand states. So you communicate from state to state. So that's why right now, even though you have not given birth to your child yet, you communicate to your child through your states. Yeah.
Okay.
Make sense?
Makes sense.
So what I would like to do is, before I wrap up, what I have also prepared for you, I'm going to go through it very quickly, is that in as much as we want our children to become happy and we have all these hopes and dreams, what I would like to share with you are the qualities of self-actualizing human beings. Because wouldn't it be nice that our children grow to become a self-actualizing adult? Self-actualizing adults when they grow up. So that would be the long-term goal. So that as you set the short-term goals in your parenting, having in mind the long-term goal, you can adjust the short-term goals in order to fit in with the long-term plan. Because sometimes parents, they are not clear about the long-term goal. Sometimes they do things, they take shortcuts in order to achieve the short-term goals that will not bring them towards the long term. Okay, so what I will do is I will just share my screen. So where is that? Oh dear. Let me just do this first. It's not on. Let me just share this with you. I hope that it will be useful. I'll go through it as quickly as I can. These are something like 18 characteristics of self-actualizing people. Right. So these are the characteristics of self-actualizing people. And these are my hopes for myself because I'm not there yet. In a lot of them, I'm still quite far away from there. At the same time, these are what you can put as hopes for your children. What I'll do is that I will send you just this slide in order for you to refer to. One is the capacity for tolerating uncertainty because things are going to change in the future. Acceptance of self and others. Spontaneity and creativity. Need for private and solitude, detachment. That refers to our self-reflexive process to be able to go into that. Capacity for deep and intense relationship, not shallow, deep relationship. Genuine caring and love. Altruistic, self-transcending. A sense of humor and lightness. You know, there's like that little girl. I think you know whom I'm referring to. Her mama was driving one day, and the car stalled at the traffic light. When the light turned green, the car stalled again, and the light turned green again, and the car stalled again. And she said to Mama, "Mama, we'll never get home like this." Sense of humor and lightness. And inner directedness and absences of artificial dichotomies. That love-hate dichotomy, weak, strong, work, play. So when we hear people talk about work-life balance, that language itself is announcing to us a dichotomy. Work and life, two different things. A self-actualizing person, they operate the spectrum. More efficient perception of reality because lose your mind and come to your senses and have a healthy relationship with reality, being friend with reality. Simplicity and naturalness, autonomy, independence of culture and need for conformity. Yes, I respect the culture that I live in. At the same time, I'm not defined by whatever is culture out there. I decide on the culture for myself. I decide to be, to conform with certain norms of the culture. Next is mystic peak experiences, more democratic attitudes and dealings with others. So for many of you, I gave the example, remember the example of the Muslim, Christian, and Jew walking down the road. Okay. The ability to discriminate between means and ends. More philosophical attitude about things, a greater sense of sacredness of life, and a continued freshness of appreciation. Okay, so those are the characteristics of self-actualizing people, and I hope that they can become part of your hopes, not only for yourself, also for your children. So I consider that would be the end game of my hope for my child. And then the short term middle term goals that they want to set out for their lives. Okay, so anyone has got anything else to say, because we've come almost to the end of the session. What I hope that we have had in this session, having this clarity between hope and expectation in our languaging, when we convey the hopes about things that are beyond our control, and we apply expectation to those that is within our control, then we experience a healthier mental and emotional well-being. Similarly, with our children, we teach them about their power zone, to take full control, expectation of their powers, and to leave to chance, to leave to hope those that are outside their powers. And in that way, they'll be healthier mentally and emotionally as well. Otherwise, if we are unclear about this distinction, that we apply the expectation only to within our power zone, and we put our hopes to what's outside there, if we don't have that, then we are going to suffer that doubt, we are going to suffer the anguish, we are going to suffer that sleepless nights, because we are putting too much pressure on ourselves. In as much as we hope the heaven and the earth for our children, they may decide to do things differently. So having a clear understanding of what I can expect and what I can hope will give us that peace of mind, that acceptance. Okay, so before we end, I'd like to invite each and every one of you, if you'd like to say something, any questions that you may want to ask, or you would like to say something, I'd like to invite you right now. If you don't mind, I'll start off on the right side of my screen. On the rightmost of my screen is Danielle. Danielle, would you like to say anything?
Hi, thank you, Majuki, for tonight's sharing. I will start to use hope instead of I want. One is expectation. So like, I hope you can clean up your room. I hope you can finish up dinner by yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's some people say it's just words. However, words carry deep meaning. Yeah, thank you. And Shuhada, anything that you like to say?
Nothing much because I cannot enter earlier. Okay, I try to understand more lah. Okay, thank you, Coach.
I'll send you the link to the recording if you want to go through it again. Yeah.
Okay. My pleasure.
Thank you. So Shaima, are you able to speak or not able to?
Yes, I'm able to speak. I think I've learned a lot today. Not I think I've learned a lot today, and I'm doing quite a bit of thinking since we started. That I realized that I've been putting things, the other way, expectation from others and for myself, and I think that has gotten me, made me caused a lot of stress in my relationships. So inshallah, I'll do better. I'll have to write down some kind of plan and reminders. So inshallah, hopefully everything will get better. And I'm not just saying this for the in terms of my relationship to my children, but especially with spouses. I don't know about men, but I think women, we tend to expect things from our spouses. So yes, I found where I can improve, and hopefully I'll be able to do that. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Shaima. And I missed the question that Sue put in the chat box. What is self-transcending? Self-transcending is when you begin, it is a little bit, it has a, not to say similar, it has some references to altruism. Self-transcending is when you are able to look at what you desire and go beyond self. You transcend self. So when, let's say, when you think about you think about wealth. So now you are not just thinking about wealth only for yourself. You are now thinking about wealth for the society as such. So you are moving beyond self to more towards the society. So to transcend personal benefits for the benefit of others. Abraham Maslow used the term meta-grumble. So when you approach a problem, so now you are not looking to solve problems only for yourself. You are now looking to solve problems for society at large. So that's self-transcending. Yeah. Okay, so I'll move on to Pak Ramli there. Are you able to, yes, you have just joined the meeting and I will send you the link of the recording. Do you have anything to say before we end? Okay, that's thank you. Maybe you can access your audio. Sue, anything from you? Thank you, Sue. You cannot put the mic on. It's a thought-provoking session and shows us how we need to have more hope than expectations, so as not to put excess stress on the children. Yes, and the thing about it is that for one or two of the perfectionists in this room, we tend to put a lot of expectations on ourselves. Just make sure that you don't put that same expectation on others. And Jason is hearing that. In my final year, doing up my final year project. So I was running out of time and my wife decided to help me. So she decided to type out my final year project. So I have this perfectionist expectation of how it should be, and it didn't meet my criteria. I'm sorry, at that time, I didn't have all of these skills of communicating, and she swore that she's not ever going to help me again. So I've come to the point that whatever that she does for my benefit, I decided to not use my benchmarks. My benchmarks I throw out of the window and just to be accepting whatever that comes. And I see Jason nodding vigorously. So, Deirdre, how about you?
Thank you, Mazuki, for tonight. It's always very informative and insightful. I've gained some things to, as I mentioned to you, that I should be more deliberate in verbalizing my hopes to my children so that they know where my expectation, in that sense, my hopes for them, and also to put the expectations within my control, the ones within my parameter. So to me, expectations was also always something that a bit hesitant to put on the children, because there's been this kind of negative sensation, but now you put it in words because of the rigidity, not being flexible. So now that I know, it's okay to have expectations as long as it's within your control. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And Franska?
Nothing, Mazuki. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. And Marilyn?
I think my biggest takeaway from today's session is the languaging. I think the languaging makes such a big difference. Because sometimes even just saying, oh, I hope, I hope you will be, for example, I hope you will be a doctor when you grow up. That could also put a lot of pressure. I know for me, it did. I know my parents hoped a lot of things for me, but the languaging, it felt a lot more like a pressure, an expectation. So I would always now will want to add in, I hope you may want to, that you may, rather than just, I hope that. So I feel that, thank you for pointing that out, and the option to decide and choose, especially from my experiences, is very important to me. The freedom to choose and so that it's not final, it's not it's not an expectation, and the pressure will not be such a burden. And a hope will remain a hope and not expectation.
Yes. Thank you. So part of the skill as parents that we want to use with our children is the language of tentativeness. That's the language as coaches we use with our clients. For example, you can say, I hope that you become a doctor when you grow up, if that's what you want to be. So you are leaving that option open. Yeah. Just like when I go into the forest and I notice that grasshopper doesn't seem to be fully there for that particular walk. So I just, and we have planned to go into the forest for a week already. And when I notice that she doesn't seem to be all there, I'll say to her, do you want to continue on, or would you like to go back? That's either way, it's okay with me. So she knows that I've been looking forward to go into the forest. However, I give her that space to say, no, I don't want to do this. That flexibility. Yeah. So Jason, anything from you? The mic. Okay?
I'm good. I'm good.
Thank you. Thank you. And last but not least, Sherry.
Hi, I'm good too. It was a good session for me, and now I can apply it, especially on the hopes and expectation, to know to differentiate it, and especially like she said that and not to pressure ourselves, especially on the expectation side. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I hear the sound of joy in the background.
Oh my God, sorry, it's really noisy here. They're not sleeping yet.
Okay. And I noticed Sue put in the chat box there, well, we also need to be kind to ourselves, so not to put excess pressure on ourselves because of perfectionism. I am like that, and I need to learn to accept the 20% versus the 80%. So this is the perfectionist. So it seems that we have another person who can join our party. Hey, Shaima.
It's really true. It's really true on that.
Any one of you have ever been to the supermarket and then you notice that row of peanut butter, and the labels are not all facing the front. And you decide to adjust the label so that all the labels face the front. That's what perfectionists do.
Oh, that one is neo OCD. Perfectionist is different.
Yes. So some perfectionists, they have already gravitated towards that.
OCD.
Borderline OCD.
Grasshopper would do that if you were to spend too long at one particular place. She'll start doing that.
No wonder it takes too long to go to do grocery shopping.
Okay, so with that, everyone, we are coming to 9:30 now. I really appreciate your being here. I really enjoyed this session. I hope that you have gained something of value for yourself. And before we end, I'd say I'm sorry for that mix up, that the email informing you of the link was not sent out. But I'm so glad that you got it and you are here. So with that, thank you very much, everyone. Good night. God bless. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Such a pleasure.